say the numbers rather than. So we'll call the meeting in order for the workshop for July 5th. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson? Here. Councilmember Wong? Here. Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Here, quorum is present. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So we have, looks like one topic, and I'll turn it over to Interim City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. So the topic tonight is the 2023 Levy and Budget Goal Setting Workshop. This is a kickoff of the 2023 budget process. In this workshop, the City Council will have the opportunity to discuss and set the 2023 levy target and to identify your goals and objectives for the 2023 budget. Items for consideration tonight will include 2022 budget and city-based property tax levy, driving factors for 2023, preliminary valuation changes, 2023 potential property tax impact, HRA and EDA property tax levy, and the budget calendar. And as always, Director Winnick has been very busy in putting together a good packet for you all, and I'll let him take it over from here.
Doesn't it seem like we just ended the budget and it starts all over again?
It absolutely does, yeah. It's just like, yeah, I didn't even get to catch my breath from the last one. But I just want to know that, you know, there's a little bit of deception that was made today. When I had put this item out on the workshop, there was another item. So I thought, oh, you know, the other item will probably be about a half an hour or so. And I figured, I could fill about 45 minutes to an hour, you know, hopefully, you know, at that point in time. And then when it got published, it was gone. And I'm the only item. So, you know what ends up happening with that?
You get us for an hour and a
I
half.
get you for an hour and a half. And so I was looking at this, and this is actually a workshop. So we're going to do some work tonight, too.
Perfect.
And we need your help, actually.
Okay.
So after I go through the material that's been presented, then we've got some questions and some Post-it notes to get your feedback on a number of questions. And then we will be looking at bringing a preliminary levy budget, which includes the general fund, the EDA, and the HRA, hopefully as soon as 2 weeks from tonight, so we can start to have that more of an authentic dialogue on exactly where we're at. And I think it went well last year. We'll prepare some options. Some options may be increasing, some may be decreasing, and you know, kind of talk about the impacts that those would have. And again, it's up to you, you know, to make the decision and ask any questions. But I kind of wanted to walk through some of the material and today, and I kind of want to. There's some areas that I want to remind that this City Council did a fantastic job last year. And there's a kind of an overall theme I want to present to everybody, is that we positioned ourselves through what we did last year to be able to do the 2022 street road projects. In addition to that, we prepared ourselves to levy money this year and not having that huge of an impact on our taxpayers. And I think that's crucial to know. And where that comes in is fiscal disparities. And when we get that into the presentation, I'll kind of describe that a little bit more. But if you recall, when we were looking at refinancing some of our debt last year, it was actually market value debt. We refinanced it with net tax capacity debt. So what that does is, in essence, is it raises up our local rate, doesn't have an overall impact for the taxpayer, but that local rate then gets utilized, the prior local rate gets utilized for the next year's value of fiscal disparity dollars that we receive back. And North St. Paul is considered, from the fiscal disparities perspective, a winner. I think we're ranked like about number 6 of all the cities, St. Paul being the highest winner in the fiscal disparities. And so if we don't levy and our rates go down, the subsequent year, even if we were to have a 0% levy in that subsequent year, the taxpayers will pay, will be hit with an increase because we will lose fiscal disparity dollars. So I kind of want to set that out there kind of as a separate message, and we'll cover it as we go through the materials. But to begin the 2023, I think we need to start with where we left off last year. And if I can move this other screen down here. The purpose of this workshop tonight is to provide an opportunity for the City Council to discuss and set the 2023 levy target. That'll be a question that I'll be asking later on, so let's not jump and everybody go 0%. We'll go through the materials, and later on we'll discuss that. It's also an opportunity for City Council to identify their goals and objectives for the 2023. Part of hearing from you and finding out what those goals are and objectives will help us align better the development of our budget to make sure that we're achieving those goals and achieving those objectives. Some work that I think the city needs to do in the future is really to define a citywide mission, vision, and to have your goals established and reviewed on an annual basis, so we can align our budget to those goals and making sure that we're planning for the future the best that we can for the residents of the city of North St. Paul. Items for consideration tonight, we're going to start with the starting point of the 2022 budget. We're going to look at some of the driving factors that we are already aware of that are going to impact our 2023 budget. We're going to look at preliminary valuation changes, and that is just amazing news, and I think we're kind of anticipating it just because of the residential home sales in the market, but they've gone up very, very high for the residents. And then we're going to talk about looking at that. I've made some estimates of what that 2023 potential property tax impact would be. Then we're going to take a look at the HRA and EDA property tax levy, and then just kind of a high overview of the budget calendar. After I get through all of that stuffy kind of stuff, then we're going to have some fun. We're going to do a few exercises, and again, it's really to help Brian and myself understand where the City Council is coming from, so we can bring a budget back to you that meets your goals and meets your objectives. It is also a part of our process this year that we're going to do is that we are going to bring all the departments heads in here to talk about their budgets and to make sure that there is that ownership component to it for what they're asking for and what the impacts if a financial decision isn't made, whether it's a staffing level, whether it's you know, a line item in their budget, and we're looking at not funding it fully. So the starting point, the 2022 budget. Some highlights from that 2022 budget. Our revenues composition, property taxes compose the budget in the general fund 56%. So we're heavily reliant on the property tax. Intergovernmental makes up 20%. A lot of that's the local government aid. And then other financing sources or transfers, and that's really what we're getting from basically our enterprise funds. Our expenditures composition by category, our personnel and benefits make up 64%, our professional services 14%, internal services 12%. Composition of our expenditures by department, our public safety, including police, is at 43%, fire and code enforcement at 14%. So you can see 57% of our budget is for public safety. Street maintenance makes up 14%. And if you remember, our 2022 levy increase was 5.99%. And our past 13 years, the average has been 5.32%. So really last year when we went up to 5.99% coming off of a zero levy, we really weren't all that far outside of what has been the norm in the past 13 years. Some years have been lower, some have been higher. In the general fund, just kind of looking at, you can see where the ad valorem taxes, property taxes is 55.78%, the 56%. You can see other financing sources, intergovernmental. Special assessments is 0%. We no longer do special assessments. That's something probably in the future that we probably will end up having to have more of a discussion about. on whether we want to reverse that decision and charge special assessments on street projects. Right now, the city does not. Expenditures by category, again, you see personnel costs are almost 50% of our cost. And you can see, well, actually personnel costs are higher than that, because if you take personnel and benefits, you're arriving at 63% of our budget is just the personnel to keep running on a day-to-day basis. Expenditure by departments, again, you see the police, the fire, code enforcement, street maintenance. The rest of them are pretty low. You've got administration at 6.24%, finance at 4.78%. So there's really not a big driver outside of public safety and the street and maintenance, really coming down to the basic services that a city provides. Again, here's kind of a history of the levy, looking at it both from a debt levy and a general fund component to it in a total levy perspective. If you look what we did last year, again, just by the great decisions that the city council made last year, we actually lowered our debt levy portion of our levy, allowing us to increase a little bit more on the general levy component to it, which allowed us to add some new positions. If you remember, we added back a director of public works, a very valuable position to have in the city. We added a sergeant's position to the police force, in addition to a part-time CSO. And then we moved a part-time employee in community development to a full-time position. So we did, did a very good job of adding some FTE positions. I think, the unfortunate piece of our city manager, who was just here for a relatively short period of time, there's some walkaways that I think that we've learned from him in his time being here. One of the things from day number one that he was talking about is that to achieve that 0% levy that was done in 2021, that there were 4 positions that were cut. And Public Works Director being one of those positions. And that I think that there was, as a matter of fact, there was a very good support, because it was approved mid-year of this year, of adding a community development director. So I think one of our walkaways from our past city manager's time here was that, we do really need to look at our staffing levels to make sure that we're building those redundancies. In addition, building up those succession planning, and also making sure that we are doing a better job of planning for the future within the city. And there's some other walkaways that I'll kind of intertwine as we're moving through the presentation. But I think that's one thing that I would really like to talk about, that, it's really a look at that staffing levels. And we'll hear a lot about that when we bring up the department heads themselves in the conversations. Some driving factors for the 2023 budget. So our total personnel costs are going to increase $314,000, or 5.4% of the levy. Existing personnel is increasing $136,000, or 2.35. That's actually pretty good. The reason why I say that's actually pretty good, because you got a cost of living in there, that's a 3% increase. And there's insurance increases. We're able to be underneath that 3% just because of some of the attrition that has happened, where some of the higher salaries have been replaced with lower salary employees. And then 2 decisions that were made mid-year, middle of this year, or earlier first quarter, of adding a new community development director, which would have approximately $50,000, or a 0.87% levy increase. The total cost of that community development director, including all benefits, is approximately $168,000. The new police officer cost is about $127,000. That's all from the general fund, or the levy. That amounts to approximately a 2.2% levy increase. Debt levy, we're increasing it just a modest $7,000 or 0.1%. Local government aid, and we had a little bit of a discussion on this earlier this year. Right now, just like last year, we're poised to not get the supplemental local government aid, which would amount to about $119,000 loss or a 2% loss in our would require us to do a 2% increase in our levy to compensate for that $119,000 loss. Brian and I met with Metro INET.
Are you saying we are having 119,000?
Loss.
We
We're
are.
going to lose.
We are
that.
going to lose that for sure.
Right now, position. But again, last year we were at this position and it appeared that we were going to lose and then we ended up getting the supplemental.
Yep.
But right now, by statute and what's out there, that we're going to lose it. There's a workshop tomorrow that I'm going to tune into that's going to talk a little bit more about the local government aid, so I'll know more if there's a chance at all that we could get that back. So then in 2 weeks, I'll have a little bit more information if it really does look like it's going to happen. Brian and I had a meeting with Metro INET. Metro INET has gone through a number of changes this past year. They've hired a new head, kind of like a CEO of Metro INET. Metro INET has been kind of I look at it as kind of a quasi-Roseville department. They're moving out into their own entity. And by them moving into their own entity and having new leadership, they have a whole different look or perspective of how they're looking at delivering of their services. There's some positions that the city of Roseville had been providing, like administrative support, that they would end up needing to hire. I think they were looking at, for 2023, 5 additional FTEs. And they've got, graphs to show that their complement has been well down in consideration towards the industry itself. In addition, they need to build up some fund balance. And so they're looking at they came up with 3 different options to pay it all basically in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It'll be voted on by all the members of Metro INET, so we're not sure exactly where it'll fall out. This represents the worst case scenario at option number 1, which is in 1 year. And that would be a total of $72,000 increase, a little over 30% increase from where we're at in 2022. The levy portion to it, or the impact that it has on the general fund, is $54,000, or almost 1% of a levy increase to cover those additional costs. So the items above here that I've just kind of talked about, it's almost $500,000, or an 8.5% levy increase just to cover those basic needs. I think, as we're all aware, we are in some very high inflationary times. From May to May, the increase right now is at 8.7% increase. So to achieve an 8.5% levy increase with what's included here, and we definitely will have some options that we can look at in our next presentation, in 2 weeks, but at an 8.5% levy increase here, to achieve that is going to be just a struggle. And what do I mean by that? It means that all of our other line items have to be coming in at 0%. Yet we too are being faced with this inflationary, item here. So coming in at 8.5 will be a struggle right here, just with the information that I've presented, of what we know today. So that's the bad news. So let's get past that bad news part to it. I put together, just so you're fully aware and the residents know, this is what our debt levy summary is for 22 and 23 and the incremental changes, and part of that's just on the debt schedules themselves. As you can see on the very bottom line, the 2022A, we had that covered and budgeted 2024 and our 2022 levy already, so that's why that street project is not having a big impact, on the residents. We've already absorbed that in there, and again, the credit goes to city council, because we called debt early, and we refinanced to allow us to be able to do these projects. Preliminary valuation changes. Now, here's the good news. Now, here comes into the good news. This is the highest total market value increase in 10 years. The increase is across all property segments. That means industrial property, commercial property, apartments, residential. It's the second highest median residential market value increase in 10 years. Only 2020 was higher than this. So that's the good news. We're driving on good news now. So here's just to show where the North St. Paul market value trends have been and what they're looking at. So the median value home right now, again, these are estimates. They can change. They're not final valuation numbers. But you can see our overall assessor's estimated market value went from, what is that? That's a big number. Is that like $1,160 million? And it went up to $1,365 million. And the median value home went from 237 to 273. I think that's somewhere, as we see here, the median value home rose 15.5%. Our total estimated market value increased by 17.8%. Those are huge numbers. So when we're looking at the market values, it kind of leads to, when we see these huge growths like this is another indication that, at least in my estimation and in my opinion, that it's a time that levying is okay to do. In addition, that fiscal disparities component that I talked about earlier, those two factors combining, it really is showing that we should be levying. If we don't, we will hurt ourselves with a double whammy coming in future years. And we will see the impact coming in 2024. And I think we can probably all agree market values will not stay where these market values are. I think the economic indicators are showing that we're potentially heading in for a recession, and we could end up having problems. 2024 and 2025 are probably going to be our more problematic budget years. So I don't want us to look at it from the standpoint of cutting ourselves short today, because our challenges are going to become just magnified that much more in 24 and 25. So as you can see, the preliminary market values, we're seeing last year the residential, change in the number of parcels was up, 1.2%. They're pretty much stagnant in apartments and commercial and industrial going into from 21 to 22. But look at those market values. Residential 15.5, apartments 14.5, commercial 3.2, industrial 10.4. I think it was something like $50 million of the market value increase is due to growth, new construction. Those are things that this city council should be taking credit for, because those were the decisions to redevelopment that is causing our tax base to move up in the future. And so again, we've positioned ourselves very, very well for the future. The potential property tax impacts. I've kind of run some scenarios based upon this. Now, the actual calculation for net tax capacities and so forth from Ramsey County won't be done until August. So based upon the little knowledge that I have of how property taxes work, remember once upon a time I actually did the property tax calculations many years ago. So I have kind of an educated look at how we would go about doing this, and so I put in some assumptions for where our net tax capacity would be, and then thus what our fiscal disparities would come out to be for 2023. And then I also have kind of to show, illustrate what that, what I've been talking about is if we don't levy, what's that impact going to be on fiscal disparities with no levy increase in 2024. And so I ran it looking at, you know, basically given options of looking at a property tax levy increase from 0% all the way up to 10%, and showing what that is as far as a tax levy increase total, what impact that has on the median value home as far as their total tax for the general fund component to it, and then what's the change from 22 to 23. And if you look at that, even up to a 1% levy increase, there still would be a reduction in the property taxes that a resident with a median value home pays from 22 to 23. That's absolutely remarkable. You know why that's remarkable? Because it went up 15.5% in market value. I mean, it went from 237 to 274. Again, that's a huge indication that what we did in doing with our debt and fiscal disparities, that we positioned ourselves to do a levy this year. And as you keep going through and you're looking at those, you can see what the impact, and I really wanted to break it down, you know, even at a 10% levy increase, you know, it's a $101 increase, you know, on a median value home. That's $8.42, you know, a month. I'm not trying to downplay that, and I'm not trying to say that that's not an impact and that I'm insensitive to the residents. I understand. And we're living in some very tough times as costs of everything are rising. Again, we're seeing inflation rates of 8.7%. I'm just trying to illustrate and show that that impact isn't as big of an impact as one would think. And part of that is because we've offset a lot of that through what we've done in the past year. But I kind of want to show the illustration of that. Let's say we did a 0% tax levy, and we gave every resident that on the median value home a $22 reduction from what they're paying today. And then we go in the next year and we do another 0% levy increase. They're going to be paying $48 more in 2024, even with a 0 and a 0, because our local rate will be dropping down and our fiscal disparity dollars will be dropping down that we get. And we will still have an impact on our residents. So somehow we need to find that sweet spot to where we feel comfortable, so we're minimizing the impact in 2024 with what our decision is in 2023. And again, I honestly believe that we're going to see, and I'm going to probably say 2025 is probably going to be the roughest year. I think by that point in time, residential properties will be dropping. I think we'll still be strong enough coming up here, because remember when we get ready for the payable 2024 valuations, they're done on January 2nd of 2023. I think the residential values will still be good. I think they'll start to drop drastically after that. And at that point in time, if our values are going down, isn't really the greatest time in the world to start raising that levy up at the same time. And we'll be having that as an impact, and we'll also be having the loss of fiscal disparity dollars as an impact too. HRA and EDA property tax levy. Historically, we've levied based upon what the statute maximum will allow us. For the HRA, that's a 0.0185% of the estimated market value by statute. If we were to do that, that would be a $215,000 levy. It's a 5.1% increase. It would have a $2 increase on the median value home. And for the EDA, if we were to do the maximum of 0.1813% of the estimated market value, Again, that would be a 5.1% increase, and that would have an increase of $2 per median value home. The budget calendar that we're looking at tonight is basically our official kickoff. There's already been a lot of work that's been done behind the scenes. Obviously, we've done the salary projections. All department heads have been given materials, have submitted. We've already had some initial conversations. After tonight and after we have some questions answered and get a little bit more clear direction, Brian and I will be meeting with department heads to go through and kind of firm that up so we can present something for you on the 19th. And we'll be having continuous meetings all the way through the time that we adopt the preliminary levy in September. And remember, in September, we're going to be adopting a maximum levy, which means it can't go up from that point, but it can absolutely go down. So from now until then, we'll really be focusing a lot on the levy component to it. We'll also be looking at the CIP, the 10-year CIP plan. And then after we answer some questions tonight, will help us determine what other discussions that we want to have to help you be able to make a decision and to help us develop a budget that meets your goals and your needs. And so with that, see, that's where that other item would have been very handy because I've already through this part. It's really opened it up to discussion as far as the material that was presented. So it's really kind of a question and answer period.
I think it was a good presentation, and looking forward to what anticipation of what's going to happen. Inflation's a big deal.
It's huge.
It's a big deal right now. And I think market values, I think you're correct. I think we're at the high peak and, they just keep going up and up and up. They can't sustainable at those levels. So I think you're kind of correct. In the next couple of years, there will be a correction in the market, and that's when we're going to be hit. But I'll open it up to council. Any questions? Councilmember Thorson.
Just looking at this schedule, I'm not noticing, because there's another component to our budget, and that's the enterprise funds. And in years past, we've kind of, talked about the general fund separately, but, they can be a part of each other. And, we're in a unique position where we have our own electric utilities. And so, monies from that have been used to finance projects in the past and to supplement general fund operations. So I'm just kind of curious, are we planning on having discussions on that in the future here, or is that, what's the outlook for that?
That is a question that'll be asked later on. So we certainly can have some preliminary discussions on the enterprise funds. We're working on those as we're working on the general fund too. So yeah, we certainly can do that too. And you're absolutely right. One of the options that will be presented in 2 weeks is again, depending on the comfort level of setting that levy target. An option is, you transfer more from your enterprise funds to offset some of those increases, and that'll be something that we'll, from the staff level, we'll be presenting. So yes, we definitely should be taking a look at those. And they're a little bit more subject to change because there's some other components that we don't end up getting. I'll use the electric fund. Usually it's not until the latter part of the year that we actually find out from MMPA, is that, Brian, is that correct? What they're positioning for a rate increase for the next year, which obviously has a great impact on our rate for that. But we definitely can have preliminary numbers ready for you to take a look at.
Because I've been trying to encourage us to adopt like a fund balance policy within those funds, because I think that can help guide us in our decision-making for the general fund as well. And also, I can't remember the dollar figure off the top of my head, but didn't 2020, was it 2021, we ended up in a positive? So we try to balance, we pass a balanced budget, but we ended up with a positive, we didn't spend as much money as we were anticipating, and then that money, per our policy, gets put into other funds. What was that? Do you happen to know what that number was off the top of our head?
Yeah, that, the number for the general fund was $824,000. And when we look at that from a budgetary standpoint, this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky and really comes down to a dialogue on where our comfort level is. From an expenditure standpoint, we're a little over $200,000 to the positive on our expenditure. We already know there's $100,000 that we've already taken out for this year in 2022, and that was in the parks, the contracted lawn service, and we're doing that in-house. So we already reduced that. So if we were to just play out that the expenditures were in line with what they were in 2021, there was $100,000. So the bulk of that 824 really is coming from revenues, increased revenue sources, and the biggest one is permitting. And permitting went a lot higher than we had anticipated. Earlier this year, permitting was close to what we would normally see in a predictable year. And then all of a sudden, we ended up having the storm that came through. And we're seeing permitting in the last month since the storm go up significantly. That's kind of that unpredictability to it. Not to say that and it's definitely something that we'll be having a discussion with, might be that if we all feel comfortable, we could increase the revenues. And part of it, there's an expenditure that increases too, because we do not do all of the inspections ourselves. We hire somebody. So there's a ratio that we could actually net out of that. But that's definitely something that we can look at, and it'll be an option that we will present. And again, the city council will have the opportunity to adopt that. But to answer your question, that could be a way to reduce some of that levy impact, yes.
Yeah, that was another point I had about the May 19th hailstorm, and kind of what I think the most common repair is the roof.
Yeah.
And so are we seeing kind of just on average, what's the building permit revenue that the city actually sees, because we do contract that out. And then, people have 2 years to make an insurance claim, so that's potentially something we could see spread out over the course of the next 2 years.
Correct.
Having this increase in building permits. We also had some unspent, I can't even remember now what the acronyms are, but we had some money from the CARES Act, and then something else. Where are we at with that? And then what are the parameters on what we can spend that money on?
I'll push down the road the answer for the original CARE funding to find out where we're at, because last year we had allocated some of that for some one-time purchases in the police department. So I'll have to look to see where we're at, if we're done, what's left out of that one at that point in time. I think we were looking at, I think we had about $160,000 left. We had allocated most of that out to some one-time purchases. As far as this next round, the ARPA funds, we have just received our second half. So we have approximately $1,360,000. But we had earmarked that for the 2020 street projects.
Okay.
So how much, 1 million?
360,000, 365 or something, 66 or something like that.
And so we're getting some news about potentially reduction in LGA. What is our full LGA allotment? Do you happen to know that number? Isn't it like 1.8 million or somewhere around there?
Yeah, so in 2022, our full allotment was 1,655,000. Little under 1.3 million was allocated to the general fund. Approximately 266,000 was allocated to street maintenance fund, and 100,000 to the park fund.
So there's another area where, you know, if we wanted to, we can make modifications to help. But I'm just, you know, obviously where there's gonna be there's a million ways to slice the pie. I'm just trying to, off recollection, you know, some of these things that we've chosen to do, but it sounds like obviously we'll have more discussion.
Okay, I'm chuckling a little bit because I wrote down these numbers towards the end of the day, anticipating some of the questions that may come, yeah. And yes, that's already, Brian and I had talked about, that that is an option that we will be presenting for it. So I'm just kind of laughing because I love the
We're on the
dialogue.
same
Yeah, I
wavelength
love
then,
the-
it
I love
sounds
the
like.
dialogue,
Okay,
so that-
great. And then, you know, I think, you know, it was presented to us earlier this year about the creation of the community development director position, and we all agreed that obviously there's some staffing issues and need to be addressed. And now absent of a city manager, me personally, I think that's a decision that the new individual would need to make, if perhaps they want to go a different direction. So I think for now, I would be apt to say, let's put that on hold until that new person is on board in, you know, September, October, hopefully at the earliest, and then maybe they can make a determination on that. Because I don't think, we're not proceeding forward with interviewing and hiring someone for that, are we?
No,
Okay.
we're not. It is on hold. However, from a budgetary standpoint, we do need to include it into our
Okay.
budget. So that brings me to my point number 2 of my walkaways from our past city manager. And again, it does tie into the staffing level. And it's, you know, as we're looking for a new city manager, we certainly don't want to put ourselves in a position where we've, you know, tied their hands. And we haven't levied enough, or we haven't put the correct staffing levels in there, because then it creates a mid-year shift. And it may just totally discourage somebody from even applying if they're looking at the complement or seeing that there's difficulty getting a levy increase. So those are some factors that we absolutely need to be aware of. So, you know, as far as the community development position, I mean, a new city manager may come in and say, hey, you know, I'd really like to change the title of that and have an an assistant city manager, and they would do community development, some development and some other functions. But the bottom line is that we would have at least a significant amount of the dollars already in the budget, and it would be a smaller increment that would come up.
And then I guess the last comment I had was that for the HRA and EDA budgets, are we gonna see any kind of like anticipated cost, or like how they're gonna, like an individual budget within those, and maybe like a recap of how monies have been spent in the past? And kind of going along that whole idea of, you know, just because we can levy, should we? And, you know, so I'd like to see things like the current fund balance of each. And then, you know, if we're going to levy, why are we levying? Why do we need those dollars, and what are we going to spend them on? Sorts of things that I would need to see before I would want to support something like that. So that's all I have.
I would say for the HRA, EDA budgets, it'd be nice to go back to the committees and get a recommendation from them,
Absolutely.
just to see what, you know, what their plans are for spending for the year. You know, we did talk about some sort of position in the EDA. And again, it goes back to, I think, that new city manager, you know, what is that title going to be? Maybe it's part EDA, maybe it's part, you know, it could be a whole lot of things. So I think, you know, getting some sort of recommendation from the HRA and the EDA, or at least have discussion in those commissions to bring back either a recommendation or a, you know, some sort of thought process for why we would raise that levy to what they want it to be.
And, and to play off of that, and that was a part of what I had sent out when our past city manager was still here and sent him, he got a little bit more detailed budget schedule that went out to all the department heads and so forth. But there was a second page of the document, and it listed all of our commissions, because we really should be talking to every one of our commissions and getting their recommendations and bringing that forth to the city council. So that's including planning, arts, and you know, Parks and Rec and so forth, to make sure that they all have a voice in this budget process.
You didn't say one of the positive things here was you have a year's experience now within our budget.
Pretty close. I have to be
You
on.
know
I
the
have.
numbers now, rather than just
Yeah.
jumping into the
Yeah.
middle of the budget and,
I still have to be on good behavior for another week before I hit my probationary period over. But
and I would say part of that is, you know, the position that you're asking for in the past, you know, is that also part of this budget?
that's, you know, it really comes out of some of the discussions that we're going to have a little bit later. You know, to me, I look at things from the standpoint of what's the best for the city, and I look at it as steps and increments in getting there. And so I believe that there's some other needs that are, to me, that I would prioritize higher. I'm not going to say what they are until we get into that part. So I certainly could defer that, you know, request a little bit longer. It really comes down to some other needs and where we're going to, you know, really kind of target our levy at. And that's really, I think, more critical for me to see. Again, almost a year into this job here, I am still thankful to have this opportunity. I am still amazed at the city council. I'm still amazed at all the people that work here and the dedication. And I know it's hard to believe after a year, I'm still glad that I made this decision. So, yeah, so I just think it's just a great environment. I just think that there's some other priorities that we really haven't been discussing as far as staffing is concerned in some other areas, so.
I know you feel pretty comfortable in your office now because when you started, your desk only had a few papers on it. Now it's piled
buried.
up 2 feet high.
Yeah.
Any other comments or concerns for presentation? Otherwise, part 2 of the,
Part 2, ready to move on?
ready to move on?
All right. So part 2, these were the budget objectives and outcomes that were in the 2022 budget. It's the focus on basic services and funding these activities at adequate levels, demonstrate a commitment to existing infrastructure and proactive repair/replacement, sufficient funding for equipment replacement, building maintenance, and information technology, ensure city-operated public safety programs meet the needs of our residents, balance residential market growth with tax increases. That's a key one I'm going to play off of because that's kind of my overall message that I've been saying over and over again. And then adhere to a balanced budget. And I think that's, you know, that's a principle that we totally believe in. I want to back up to the third to last bullet in public safety. Again, a lot of compliment. I have to give a lot of compliment to the city council because last year and this year, well, in the year that I've been here, you've made a significant investment in public safety. And that is something that just shouldn't be overshadowed. And it's not just the increases in staff, it's also the increase in the commitment to funding of needed equipment in both the police and the fire. So a little bit more heavy on the police side, and I think that we need to make some attention this year on the fire side. But yeah, I think that you've done just a remarkable job on public safety. So I'm bringing these budget objectives and outcomes that were in 2022. And here's my question. Do you agree with the budget objectives and outcomes? And I would also like to ask you to take a moment and write down any additional budget objectives or outcomes that you would like to see. And then we will have more of a discussion on that.
Could you go back to the previous slide,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
I'll leave it there.
Appreciate it.
Remember, your responses need to be in the form of a question.
What was the difference between the two?
Some like lines, so you can follow on. Is everybody ready? Pretty good. I'm going to randomly just pick on one and pull your post-it note. Stuff all over.
Can you read any of it?
I think there's some, yeah, I think we can see.
Most of mine fell underneath, I mean, mine were much more specific than the general budget over, and I jotted those down as we were sitting here, so the majority of mine fall into the big buckets you already have.
So you've got on here some, downtown landscape, roads, street projects, preparing, positions, staffing. Can you talk into the mic, or sorry? I'll be that guy. So we're looking at downtown landscaping and road projects, preparing to make sure that we have the right positions, community development director, the building maintenance of all of our facilities. So really a lot of investing and a lot of planning items is what you're identifying.
And a lot of mine is now, let's invest now
Yeah.
to potentially save.
In the future.
Downstream, we're playing catch up on a lot of
Yep.
things. Let's continue to build on that, take the momentum.
So I didn't specifically put items in there that,
And you don't have to have specific items that are in there. To me, my walk away is really investment, because then there's gonna be a dialogue that's around that investment, especially when we come to the capital improvement project. Then we'll get into the specific details.
can I tell you mine then, or you want?
Yes, if I can, yep,
You want to take it, or you want me to explain it to you?
you explain it.
Well, I agree with the objective.
With mine, he's not gonna stick anything.
I agree with the objectives and outcomes that you had listed. I believe these are instrumental for our core services. Also giving our taxpayers the greatest amount of outcome for our assets and services. In other words, greatest value for our services. We need to keep updated. Need to keep things updated.
Okay?
Something of that sort.
I'm gonna take it because I'm gonna
And you
take
can have
this
it.
after we're done and make sure that it's all compiled and that it'll be the first thing in our next workshop to make sure that we're in agreement with what's there.
Can I put Tim's name on here?
So I did answer your question with a question, and I just asked what city services are, sorry. I said I answered your question with a question, and I said, well, what current city services are not at adequate levels right now? And I think that, once we get feedback from the department heads, we can talk about that. Just to stress the continued importance on focusing on the capital improvement plan and our aging infrastructure, because it's just, as the years go on, we're seeing more and more water main breaks and more sewer backups, things like that, that are just gonna keep getting worse and worse the longer that gets delayed. So if we fall off the schedule, kind of like we did this year, it's just gonna be a compounding problem in years down the road. And then I just, last thought was, try our best to make an attempt to keep fees and taxes as low as possible due to the current economic uncertainty and current market inflation levels. I understand what you're saying by, trying to plan ahead in years into the future, but it's hard to do because of all those uncertainties. So what we can do is just focus on the now, and it's just going to be a tough pill for people to swallow when, their taxes are already going to go up with this large adjustment in their market value on top of it. And then if we tack on adding increasing fees and taxes, it's just kind of a double whammy, especially when prices of everything are up. So that's just quickly my thoughts.
I'm gonna come and grab those. Candy?
Well, the water tower, I think we're gonna need a water tower at some point, so just kind of put that in your back of your mind. The community center, how we're gonna repair it, and when we're gonna repair it, and where the funding is gonna come from that. And then just keeping a good balance for equipment and replacements, because those things come up, and it's important to be ready for that. And not to rely on the LGA. I mean, we do rely on it a lot, but maybe in the future, we might have to not really rely on it, so. If it's gonna, decrease every year, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Last but not least,
Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation, first of all. So I completely agree with my colleagues here about infrastructure, CIP, and maintenance of existing assets that we have. Additionally, I think providing adequate funding to enhance the livability through multimodal transportation, parks and rec, arts and culture. And then invest equitably so each department's needs are met, and that's distributed in a way that is reflective of the needs, but also balanced in the budget. I think you're already on roll with this, but an inclusive process. And staffing.
I thank you very much. I'm going to come and grab that here in a second, but I'm going to go back over here and get you started on the second one. And definitely some of this can be overlap. But the next one is city goals. Please take a moment and write down city goals so we can better align the 2023 budget. And that's where what I kind of stated earlier. At some point in time, we really do need to develop a citywide mission, vision, and those goals, and that we are. And we don't want a ton of goals, 4 goals. We want to be able to make sure that all of the department heads are in alignment with those goals and that we're actually budgeting and putting our money into achieving those goals. In other words, they have to have measurable results. And I hear so much of what would fall into that very easily when you're talking about the capital improvement planning, the infrastructural needs of the city. You can definitely see that would fall into one of those high goals that the city has, and with that it intertwines with multimodal transportation and making this a more livable community. So I mean, there's things that have already been coming up that intertwine with the goals, but if we can get a couple of high-level goals of your thoughts that Brian and I can convey to the department heads, that's kind of our direction to make sure that when we come back with options, that we're also talking about the impact of those options, whether they're funded or they're not, and to making sure that they're in alignment with your goals.
And if it helps Dan at the end, if we have time, we did a workshop earlier in the year for the council, and we wrote down a lot of what we're talking about, and I don't know if that was ever given to you or staff or anything, so I think there's a document out there, but I did write them all down,
Oh, fantastic.
so I do have,
Good.
I could do,
You have it? Okay.
you do have it? Okay.
Perfect, perfect.
And I think that kind of overlaps with
Yep.
some of the stuff that,
Absolutely, yeah.
did we ever do anything with that?
And you know what they always say, whoever makes eye contact gets picked on first? Yeah.
Go.
Yes, please.
Well, affordability, you know, we want to keep the town, you know, people want to move in here. So we want to keep our taxes low, but we want to deliver services. Public safety is number one. I know we talked about that before. Good roads and maintaining the roads and staffing.
Thank you very much. Mayor?
Councilmember Peterson, all good. I would agree with that. Also, I believe, you know, staffing levels, we need to get to where we were to optimize the benefit the whole organization. I think the last couple of years, coming out of the pandemic now, I think we're short-staffed and we need that staffing level. Capital improvement plan with the streets, I think we need to get those, keep those going. Development and redevelopment with the Lilly Building, Community Center, also Highway 36 and 120 is, that's what I have.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Councilmember Thorson?
So this is pretty general and vague, and I've said this before, but I think just to have a renewed focus on providing basic functions of local government, so public safety, public works, general city services, and looking at the needs versus the wants. Because every department's gonna have, you know, a long list of things that they wanna have, but, you know, we gotta look at the big picture, and, you know, sometimes we just can't fund everything. Just the continued focus on the capital improvement plan, just sounding like a broken record, but it's important. And more specific things, just a goal to, at least by the end of 2023, have the downtown landscaping completed. And then have the new city manager review staffing levels, because that was discussed at our council retreat. It's been brought up here, obviously, several times, so that clearly is an area of focus.
So your comment of broken record, I actually like hearing that because it's giving us a constant theme that really where we should be prioritizing, you know, our resources. So no, I actually thank you very much. I'm going to grab that in a second. Lisa?
Sure, yeah, mine are quite vague as well, but I would agree with many of the things that have been said so far. I would like to see, and this is bigger picture than maybe that this was intended for, but invest in the city, particularly infrastructure, to mitigate impacts of climate change.
Wow.
Very big. And then invest in the capacity of city staff, so the services can also reflect the changing needs of the community. And then I would refer to the comp plan as well. There is a vision statement in there as well. Should I read it? Let me read it.
Sure, yes, please.
North St. Paul is your favorite small town. We promote community stewardship through an involved and informed citizenry. We preserve neighborhood value with diverse and maintained housing and active neighbors. The city engages in creative placemaking that fosters an environment of economic and employment opportunity. North St. Paul builds systems that connect people to places and promote active lifestyles.
Very good. It's very good.
Work's been done.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Councilmember Cole.
The beauty of going last, what they said. Again, Dan, to tie into your earlier comment, a lot of it's consistency, I think, across most all of us here. It's all just said potentially a different way. But it's continue to make North St. Paul a desirable destination for new residents and new businesses. Very similar to what Lisa just read, and a lot of that ties in. To provide the city amenities and services the residents are seeking, to continue the downtown development with businesses and services the residents want, continue to make North St. Paul a livable, walkable community, enhance the parks, enhance additional ways of usage, and potentially incremental parks throughout, as well as just increased rate of repair for city infrastructure, the CIP.
Fantastic. Oh, 2 down, 2 to go.
Oh, look at the time.
Next one is quicker and easier to do. The last one will take a little bit more time. Please take a moment and write down the range you would like to set for the 2023 levy target.
I don't think that's a fair question. There's so many unknowns right now.
Absolutely. There's a lot of unknowns. Part of the presentation was kind of what we know today. But this can change. It's something for us to, at least the budget that we give to you in 2 weeks, it may not meet that, but then it'll give you options to get within that range. And then that's really where the dialogue really begins. Because you'll hear from department heads, you'll be able to ask those tough questions. It'll be able to weed out, is it a want? Is it a need? If we do this, how do we balance this? Are we giving up on some of our goals that you've just very articulately put together? So it's really just to get us that where are we on the correct page. Frankly, if there's a lot of zeros that are on here, there's not a lot that we're going to be able to have. It's going to be a very tough budget discussion in year. And again, I can't emphasize we're going against what we've already set up and against one of our budget outcomes and objectives. So with my final piece to it, I'm starting off with Councilmember Thorson.
0 to 5.32%.
Wow, average over 13 years?
9%.
Keep going down the road.
Oh, I'm going to, 4 to 7.165. I'd go with Councilmember Thurston's, give it a little .165.
6 to 10%.
Right, Lisa?
So goal?
Range.
Goal is to stay in line with historic average, but let's see what that looks like when we're done. So I said not to exceed 6%, but that doesn't get us there. A lot of unknown.
You got a couple minutes.
Couple minutes left for this next one here, and they didn't think I could fill up an hour and a half.
Oh, I knew you could. I get excited about these things.
So please take a moment and write down what budget topics or additional information would help in making your final budget decision. Some of those, I think, yes, you, Councilmember Thorson had brought up earlier, things like the enterprise fund and so forth. Those are the type of topics, yep.
Start with Tim.
I think you start in the middle, work your way to left and right.
No, you're going first.
First thing I did is, the first thing I wrote down was big picture and funnel my way down. It's kind of the way my thought process goes, but enterprise funds, CIP, park dedication funds, and how to utilize the funds. What can we use it for? We're building funds. I think it's time that we start to reinvest. Review city-owned properties and discuss usage. Transfer the ownership of said properties to the EDA to expedite development.
Well, thank you. We're gonna go this way this time.
Okay.
You're not going to go around?
So I said an overview of when the department heads make their presentation, the functions and activities. of each department, and then also kind of an assessment of where they are at in terms of their budget and their programming. And then also, it'd be helpful for any budget allocations to have some data and trends or some charts to have some level of justification, at least quantitatively. I'd like to see some qualitative as well, if possible. And then to ask the question of how it's consistent with the comp plan. And then also like to know a little bit about staffing in each department and projections even. And then to Councilmember Cole's point, a little bit more about, our existing funds and potentially some of the limitations and privileges of each one. Thank you.
Well, I should have never asked this question, it's like a lot of work.
A lot of good ideas. My recommendation is for the EDA, HRA to kind of bring it to their commissions to get levies, what they would like to see it at. I think we'll get a lot of information from the department heads when they have their meetings with you in regards to the needs for the city and the wants. And I think that pretty much sets the general levy is what we hear when we do hear from them. What's really interesting is I want to know how we come out of this pandemic. As we come out of it, what have we learned? Now we have OpenGov. We've got other things in place that we're working with now that we didn't have before, and and I think according or working with the budget, Roseville IT. What are they giving us for that amount of money? That's a big dollar amount that we're using with Roseville. I'd like to find out, what value do we get out of that? And how business is done differently than it was before. And how do we learn from it and grow from it and determine, there's things that I think that coming out of the pandemic that we've learned that we might do things a lot differently and it might be better for us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the enterprise funds too, I'm kind of interested on that one. Budget percentages, scenarios, different things that you can say, Dan, that if we do this, it impacts that.
Options. Yep.
And then this is kind of a want. But is there any extra money for swag? I mean, we've talked about this before, and it's been voted down on it. We have pins, and that's all we have is pins. But we have guest speakers or something, we can get maybe a water bottle, or just some little thing. I mean, I'm not talking big money, if there's any extra money somewhere. Because these other cities that I deal with, they really have a lot of stuff. And I mean, it's just probably a want, but.
But you're hitting on the point of promoting the city.
Our city, yeah. I like the sign that they put up I just noticed that on the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool.
Yep.
That was cool. I took a picture of it. That's all I have, thank you.
Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, I would say kind of touch on some of this stuff earlier, but maybe seeing more historical data on each department, kind of line item stuff. If there's trends, for example, if we're budgeting $10,000 in office supplies out of finance every year and they're only spending $800 to $900, we can probably bring that down. But just not saying that's what's going on, but just an obvious example. Enterprise fund detail, fund balances. It'd be nice to see some 2022 year-to-date actual revenues and expenses versus what we were projecting and how, close we are. Department budget details and details on the capital improvement plan.
I think that wraps it up. I thank you very much. I thank each and every one of you very much for your patience in going through this. I think at least for me, I've gathered a lot of information, a lot of good direction that I can share with our department heads. And the first step will be Brian and I will try to digest all of this and then meet with the department heads. But I thank you very much. I didn't think I'd be able to fill up the hour and a half.
It was awesome.
But I thank you very, very much.
And I would say, get that list from our
Yes.
workshop or our retreat that we had. There are a lot of things on there. One of the things was, a backdrop for here, there's your swag, or if that's part of that or not.
It is. It's about promoting the city, and those are really low-cost items to be able to do that. So it's all about branding.
Good, good. Well, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. It was a good workshop. Thank you. Turn it over back to interim city manager Randall.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes our agenda items for the workshop.
Okay, anything else? Anybody add anything? If not, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, meeting adjourned. We'll take a couple minutes and come back. If you could stand. It stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone. Jenny, if you could take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson? Councilmember Wong? Here. Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Your quorum is present. This time, motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second?
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We have no presentations. The consent agenda, in the past, I had the city manager do it. If you want to do that, interim city manager, or do you want me to do it? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The consent agenda is the June 21st, 2022 workshop minutes, the June 21st, 2022 regular meeting minutes, general claims for $1,022,374.89, HRA claims of $757.89, EDA claims of $131,194, approved tobacco license, and approve HydroClean sewer cleaning and televising.
So at this time, the consent agenda, you can, if there's a council member who would like to remove an item, they can do so at this time. If not, the motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. This time, the meeting is open to the public. Again, comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. While the city council may ask clarifying questions of the speaker, no formal action by the city council or discussion will be held on these items. And I do have one, John Schmall. Welcome, John.
Evening, Mayor, Council. John Schmall, 2750 Chisholm Avenue. I'd just like to make a comment, as the usual occurrence of July 4th was yesterday, and I found that Casey was not that bad after 10 o'clock last night. At my experience, standing on the deck and looking out, it was quiet. That group that was there during the day, it was not quiet. They probably couldn't see their fireworks because the sun was out, but the noise that the fireworks made was quite apparent. And I don't know what kind of a mess they left, but I guess the sweepers are out again this morning as their main course of action to clean up the mess that the fireworks people have set off. Different than the usual. And just as a comment on the prior workshop, I'd like to say that you can't eat market value increase.
Okay.
Yeah, you might think people are sitting in the catbird seat because their market value went up. Well, if their income doesn't go up and taxes go up, that market value is not something that you can go home and say, hey, my market value went up. It's not a good thing. And I'd like to ask Don Bennick as to when the postal stamp increase is going into effect. Does Don know? It's July 10th, so buy your stamps on July 9th.
Thank you, John. Anybody on Zoom? Okay. At this time, I believe we have no city business and action items, so I'll turn over to this interim city manager for new department updates.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple things. So we've been striving recently to get all of our public meetings accessible to residents. and committed to maintaining our record for archiving all these meetings, just to provide easy and transparent access to our city council commissions and special meetings. City accomplished this through effective use of technology via city website, Zoom, YouTube, web streaming, local access for the cable TV. The city's ensures that the meeting.
With a microphone just a little bit.
Apologize. Ensuring that the meeting's Zoom link and access information is clearly posted on all meetings, agendas, and that they're properly published on northstpaul.org. Streaming all council meetings and commission meetings via Zoom while they're in progress. Live streaming all council and planning commission meetings to the city's website, YouTube channel, and local access cable. Promptly posting the Zoom recordings from our commissions and special committee meetings to the city's YouTube channel for their conclusion, which also allows for the closed caption for the public as well. So we're really pushing that these meetings take place here at City Hall, either in the council chambers or the Sandberg Room, where we have easy access to audio and video equipment that we've spent quite a bit of money on. In addition to the easy access to audio and video equipment, both the council chambers and Sandberg Room meet all accessible requirements for those wishing to attend the meetings in person. We're looking to have a technician on site from 9 North to manage all of the meetings, audio and video. Having technicians on site ensures the best possible outcome of quality recordings and takes the burden off city commission staff who are tasked with running the meetings and taking minutes at the same time, so sometimes things get missed. And are often not aware when streaming issues are detected or members of the public are looking to interact via Zoom. So in looking through this, Carrie and Dan looked into it that, well, we used to be in the cable commission. We are away from that now, so we get what's called PEGs or credits back. So by not only having 9 North take care of the city council workshops, city council meetings, and planning commission meetings, we'd like to add to the streaming for the remaining commissions to include Park and Rec commissions, Economic Development Authority, Arts and Culture commissions, Redevelopment Master Plan Review, Joint EDA Planning Commission meetings, and other special committee meetings or groups as defined by council. With the PEGs or credits we get back from that, it would cover these costs, so there would be no cost to the city. We're certainly do our best to try to have these commissions in these places. We know that sometimes it's not going to work out for whatever reason, if there's technical issues or if they need to meet in a park or something at a time. But I just wanted to kind of informational that, you know, we can do this for the public. I think it'll be a really good thing, and there won't be any, shouldn't be any additional cost to the city. So, yeah. Just a reminder, National Night Out is Tuesday, August 2nd. Encourage residents to register their block parties. There's an online form, map and contact information shared with police, fire, city council, and public works. Host public safety open house in the fire apparatus bay again this year. Invite residents to enjoy hot dogs, chips, and beverage provided by the Salvation Army team. They can learn about the city's fire and police equipment, meet with fire and police staff. We encourage residents to sign up for the city newsletter and civic ready alerts. It's from 5 to 7 p.m. Police and fire teams will visit the registered block parties throughout the city. So that will be nice, and that's coming up. Some department updates. Looks like, so the student-built house is getting very far along. Their open house is going to be later this month. They've been, I think they got carpeting in this last week. We're working on landscaping, so that's coming along pretty well. The projects that we have out there on aerial, the water main and utilities are getting close to finished from 9th to 11th on aerial. The road's been milled, and that's going to be, next step will be to actually start working on the mill and overlays of the roads themselves once the utilities are done. So they're on track and on target so far. The weather hasn't hampered them too bad, so that's good. The fire had a good weekend as far as not too many calls over the holidays. That's good. They had a couple of dumpster fires, and a car fire, but that was the extent of it, no injuries, so that's good. PD just started their 19th officer today, so they are fully staffed now. So that'll be the first time Phil has experienced that since he's been here, so.
So how many new ones do we have in the last few weeks? I met someone the other day. I think they've been on a little while, but I didn't.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that are newer. I know the last one just started today. I don't remember. Is it 5 that you've done the paperwork for?
Wow. Okay. Good.
Yeah, so that's good, yeah. One nice thing that Phil had looked into and we've moved forward with is there was a plan out there that gave free phone service to first responders. So that will be all PD and all fire. So that will reduce our phone bill monthly. I don't have the exact numbers for you yet, but that should make a nice chunk missing out of the bill, so that's good. So we just recently signed the maintenance contract for our buildings, so it'll be here, Public Works, and the Community Center as well. That has already started. They've done work over at the Community Center, finding motors that weren't working, so fixing them, getting the new filters in there. So that progress is going well with Humanitech, who we signed the agreement with. So far, so good. So they're staying on top of it. The 6th Street parking lot is progressing very well. They do have the first lift down on there. It was nice. The electric department was able to keep lights there every night. They didn't have any blackouts over there, so that was good. All the lights are working now. And one good thing is we started a project last year there that creates a loop feed to the Sentinel building and then all the way back around to the Dew building on 7th and Charles. So, which is always nice in case you have a power outage from one way, you can redirect it and feed it from the other way. So that was a nice thing to get accomplished. I also wanted to just say, you guys hopefully got your invites for the MMPA. They have their yearly or annual meeting Tuesday, July 26th. They have a social hour at 5:30, dinner at 6:30, and it's at the Greenhaven Golf Course in Anoka. It's a lot of great information, the kind of accomplishments so far for the year and where we're looking at for next year, just with the topsy-turvy environment that's out there right now with gas and trying to get supply chains and all the issues that they're having. So love to see you there. A lot of good information. And that's all I have.
Any questions for City Manager? Not reports of council commissions and committees. Councilmember Cole.
Park and Rec will have their next meeting on July the 27th. There'll be a community member meeting open from 6 to 6:30 in the Sandberg Room, followed with the Park and Rec meeting at 6:30. Just as a note, don't forget the Concert in the Park series continues with the second concert scheduled for July the 21st at 7 o'clock. The entertainment is an acoustic duo, Matt and Laura. They cover just a whole bunch of old songs to new songs to, they're pretty diverse as far as what they do cover. EDA meets Tuesday, July the 2nd at 3 o'clock here in the Sandberg Room. There's a joint EDA and planning meeting July the 21st, 6:30 in council chambers. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Wong.
As for the Arts and Culture Commission, we haven't met since, so the next meeting will be July 6th, which is tomorrow, in the Sandberg Room at 6:30. The Planning Commission had a special meeting to discuss the Eldridge property and its compatibility with the comp plan. And then also they were providing recommendations, which we'll see this evening. And then their next meeting is this Thursday, July 7th at 6:30 here in the chambers.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that 19th Avenue house. The landscape's going to be done on Thursday, and I think we're still going to do a neighborhood open house. I haven't talked to Ronnie. We've been kind of playing phone tag. That would be not in place of the school open house, but I'll get that information to Carrie, so I'll talk to her tomorrow. That's all I have, thanks.
Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, the redevelopment master plan group met on Monday, the 27th, and kind of just wrapping things up because it's due to be reviewed at the planning commission meeting on the 7th, and that's where the public hearing will take place for public comment. And then on July 12th, it's scheduled to be reviewed at the EDA and then come to the city council for final approval, if I have those dates correct. So that's, I think the last time that we met as a group, that will be the last time.
Okay, good, thank you.
So then I don't know if we need to like take official action to dissolve that, or, I don't know. How did that work? When we have a special committee that meets for a period of time and then it ends. So maybe we can get some guidance from Soren or at that final meeting after we adopt it.
Yeah. I'm not sure yeah, I would talk to Soren. The Veterans Park hosted the Wreaths Across America. Beautiful day, a lot of people, if you didn't have a chance to go down there and take a look at it, pretty impressive display of the wreaths and all that. It was pretty neat. And that general business, Councilmember Cole.
Really don't have a whole lot of general business. I did address the concert in the park. I guess I could have moved that down on my list. The only thing I really have left from an open topic standpoint is more of a follow-up. It's been quite some time since we've gotten any update from police or fire. Historically, we've gotten updates as to what types of calls they're getting on either side, whether it be from fire, what percent's first responders, the severity of what's going on, as well as, I don't think I've really seen anything from the police either in quite some time. So just as a side, if we can see something in the next month or so, just as a status update. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Wong.
I have nothing at this time, thank you.
Councilmember Peterson.
Well, I just wanted to say that the Duluth annual conference was good. All of us went, and it was nice to network, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So it was, there's always some information that's out there. And I'm going on a ride-along tonight with the police department for 4 hours, so I'm looking forward to that. Next year I'll get on a snowplow, right, Ronnie? Okay. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Well, that should be fun. That should be a lot of fun. Councilmember Thorson.
Nothing.
Just want to mention, thank you, Councilmember Cole, for coming to the open house or the ribbon cutting for the M&I homes. It was kind of interesting how the president of the association over there, that's the first time that they actually had people outside and they met each other. He said, no one's met each other since COVID. We've been just kind of a lockdown in our own community there. But there's over 200 people living over at the M&I home, so it's a big community. And they even talked about possibly doing a barbecue and having open house, inviting the council, and maybe the council even cooking some hamburgers and hot dogs for them. They mentioned it, they didn't say a date. They did the Tartan High School groundbreaking a couple weeks ago. I attended that. I'd also like to mention to the council, July 14th is next Thursday, and the firemen are having their annual picnic down at Casey Lake. And again, they would like us to do the cooking for the hamburgers and hot dogs like we did last year. And I said that I would ask for tonight if everybody would be willing to come down to help. I'm assuming around 5 o'clock, but I'll let the council know. The fire chief and I will be getting together Thursday to go over the details of what's actually needed for hamburgers and hot dogs and the timing wise. So we did mention National Night Out. I did have a few residents requesting, are we going to be doing the same thing as the previous years in regards to, I think you answered that, Carrie, people can sign up and they can get all the road closures and all that and ask for police or the city council will show up at their place, okay. But that has not been posted yet? It will be tomorrow. Okay. So that's all I have. Is there anything else, city manager?
Yeah, if I may, I missed one thing. So we did request from the insurance company, they will be inspecting 58 of our buildings/structures to make sure from the hail from May 19th hasn't done any damage that needs some fixing, so
When are they
more to
coming-
come with that.
When are they coming out for that?
I haven't set a date yet, from what I understand, but we've made contact with them, and they're going to schedule somebody to come out.
Good.
Yeah.
No other questions? We have no closed session. We will be having the HRA following this meeting. So at this time, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong, second by Councilmember Peterson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. And we'll start the HR in about 5 minutes. Trying to think of your title. There's a title here for you, but
Oh.
Jenny, if you could take the roll.
Yep. Commissioner Thorson?
Here.
Commissioner Peterson? Commissioner Wong?
Here.
Commissioner Cole?
Here.
Chair Furlong?
Here,
Executive Director Frandl?
Here.
quorum is present. This time, we're just going to do, looks like one item. I'll turn it over to the Executive Director, Frandl.
Thank you, Chair. We have only one item on docket. It's HRA action items and recommendations for the review of the Planning Commission recommendations on purchase of the 2170 Eldridge Avenue property. I think I will turn that over to Councilmember Lisa, or I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Yeah, as the council liaison for the Planning Commission, I wanted to reiterate the purpose of what the special meeting was for, and that was due to processes, and so we had and state statute had determined that the Planning Commission needed to review the purchase or the intended purchase of 2170 Eldridge Avenue with the comp plan and land use. So that was their main objective and only objective. And additionally, they had discussed including affordable housing options into our work in the HRA. And that's consistent with the comp plan.
So this time, I believe, we're just accepting their recommendation coming from the Planning Commission. And by that acceptance, I think we should, in the process, go ahead and revote in regards to the purchase of the 2170 Eldridge Avenue, just so that the process is consistent with going to the Planning Commission, then back to the HRA. So I don't have a formal, but I would, a formal, what do you call it? What do you call it? Resolution, thank you. So I would go back to the original resolution, and that is the, the purchase of the property of 2170 Eldridge Avenue East. Is there a motion to accept that purchase?
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Cole. Is there
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose?
Nay.
Motion carries. So we do have the purchase of the 2170 Eldridge Avenue East. This time I'll turn it over to Executive Director Frandl.
Thank you, Chair. If you'd like, I can give you a little an update of, we have gotten a review on the hazardous material potentially on the site. We have a request in with the county to do their pre-demolition walkthrough. They did find asbestos in 4 different areas of the building. One was the exterior, the siding. Another, there was a couple places in the basement that had some insulation around some pipes. There was a little bit of on the glazing of a couple of the windows. And then the upper level had some floor tile that had some in it as well. So,
Do we have a timeline of when they can remediate the problem?
I'm still waiting on the county to get down there and do their pre-inspection, so I can get that scheduled with Shelter Tech to take care of that. So I'm sorry, I don't have a date. It shouldn't, I've heard that the county was a little bit backed up, but I don't have a date for you, I'm sorry.
Okay. We do have Eric here if you want to. The timeline, so we're looking at, we have a little remediation to do of the property, and then we should be able to go pretty fast after that.
Right. It's my understanding that the lot will be subdivided into 2 parcels. Is that
Correct.
correct? And so right now the parcel is 120 feet wide by 121 feet deep. The current house that we plan to build 2 houses on there from right now is 42 wide by 48 deep, according to the house plans. So 2 houses should fit very, very comfortably on there.
And probably similar to what you're building over on 19th?
It'll be exactly the same, probably two houses, just like that. Yeah,
Perfect.
so four-bedroom house.
Okay. Well, good. We're excited to get you 2 parcels, and do you plan on doing 1 per year, or?
Yeah,
Okay,
one per year.
so you have 2 years.
Right, so I don't know how long that takes to subdivide the parcel or the process for that.
We're in contact with the attorneys, and they've been on top of this. Shouldn't be too long. It's just getting the paper signed, so. I can keep you informed.
All right,
Yeah, I just want to thank Eric. He's been really wonderful about updating us on that 19th Avenue house, and it's been excellent to work with you, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you. Right back at you. Yeah, Mr. Tarver.
One question, now that you're here, we've had some questions that were brought up about Tom Spend's involvement in potentially retiring, and then the 916 program continuing on if he were to retire. Can you give us an update on the status of those 2 items here tonight? Or?
I can say that Tom is thinking about retiring. I mean, I can't say anything specific about retirement until the actual paperwork comes through as an administrator. But having said that, we plan to keep going with the program, and we would love to partner with you in the future, and we will do our due diligence to hire somebody with the same background and house building capacity that Tom has. So we love our partnership with you. We don't want to be a program that just like builds a shed in like the parking lot and then sells it. We want the real life experience and preparing these students for the real world. Thank you to North St. Paul.
And the program's expanding, isn't it? Or has expanded in the last?
I mean, yes, I mean, we have 3 time blocks, and each time block can hold up to 20 students, and so there is a waiting list for next year. Not enough to hire a whole new teacher, though, so that would be the ideal part, is to have someone else that Tom can mentor and show the process, but the student enrollment just isn't there for a whole nother instructor. But if we could have like Tom on as like a project manager type thing, you know, to mentor the new person, that would be ideal also.
Good.
And then you said you have some plans already in place, and they sound identical, but how's that work as far as, I mean, do we get that presented in front of us at a future HRA meeting to approve a budget or on the plans? And how does that work?
That's a
Yes.
great question. Well, what would you like? I mean, there's the whole permit process and land plotting and certificate of survey. But yes, it would be the same plans. But yeah, having a budget would be great.
I can bring that up.
I know the last one, we did do that. We had a budget brought to us.
Okay. So you meet again in August? Is that-
We can meet as
Oh, every 2 weeks.
whenever you would like us to meet.
Okay. And then it goes to the House Planning Commission Committee first?
This is where you need the city attorney.
Yeah, we will look at the processes there just to ensure that we're,
I think because of the purchase of the property, I don't know if the plan itself has to go to planning commission, but we'll find that out to make sure we're doing everything properly.
Right. Right back at you.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Anything else?
Well, I just had a question, so I mean, before we had questions whether or not there was remediation with any of this, now we've gotten to the point now we can confirm that. Do we have an estimate on the costs of that as well, or is that to be determined once they get in there and?
Nope, I do have the estimated cost, so just the cost for them to come in and do the remediation, the walkthrough was, excuse me, it was like it's a little over $600. And then for the remedial costs, to remove that asbestos, their price was $10,620.
Just bring this up because, part of the goal here, which was reviewed by the planning commission, was to look at ways to afford affordable housing, but, I think we need to define that because it's subjective. What's affordable to me may not be affordable to others, and And, you know, we just got done looking at some numbers today in our budget about the median home value in North St. Paul. According to whatever data Dan used to put that together, it's like 273. So I think that would be a good starting point, but if selling the home for $273,000 is the goal after construction, you know, we don't have much of a construction budget if we use that number. So I think it would behoove us as an HRA to have those discussions, especially when putting together a budget. So I think maybe it would make sense to schedule another HRA meeting, if not at our next council meeting, at our only meeting in August, because we're not meeting in the first week because of the National Night Out. And maybe at that time, we'll have more specifics about costs, and maybe we can communicate with Tom and the 916 program, and they can get some estimates on things like that.
If I may, I believe in the comp plan that there is some definition of affordable housing. Additionally, a lot of housing professionals use AMI, which is average median income. So there are just different metrics that people look into in terms of affordability, but I think AMI is typically what is used.
So I think that's a good discussion for our next HRA meeting, because it's not just the affordability piece of the HRA goal. There's other goals too. So be a good discussion for our next meeting. Okay, is that it?
That concludes what was on the agenda.
Okay, if we have nothing else, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.
Do I win? 7:15 to the latest?